Hi, this is Mike Blume, and in this lesson of Bible Prophecy, Part 5, we're going to talk about a very popular subject in prophetic circles, the mark of the beast. The verses speaking about that are found in Revelation 13, beginning at verse 15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. It's not just a mark the Bible's speaking about. There's a number and there's a name. Here is wisdom, let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. If we look at this for face value, literally or naturally, a lot of people's ideas would make sense to us, that this is speaking of a computer chip that will be implanted in the forehead or the right hand. Some people have the theory that it's because of the blood flow or the heat of the body that will help charge a battery in this computer chip on the forehead or the hand, which would be the most efficient way to do so, the most efficient positions on the body. But these are biblical imageries. We don't have to go outside the Bible to find out what these things are really talking about. It's not talking about a computer chip. It's not talking about a physical tattoo. These visions are symbolic. In fact, the very first verse in Revelation tells us that they're signified or signified. It says, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John. You can remember what signified means by just breaking it up into two parts. Signified. They're signs. And the mark of the beast I found to be after a pattern that was clearly set forth in the Old Testament. Now in Deuteronomy chapter 6, we read in verse 4, the Shema, or Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. But then he makes a statement that uses an Old Testament Hebrew metaphor that we don't recognize so much today. We recognize the first part of it, which says, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart. But the old cultural language continues and says, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. Now the heart, soul, and might represent the spirit, soul, and body. 1 Thessalonians 5:23 says that man is a spirit, soul, and a body. And the heart, we're all familiar with that idiom. You love somebody with your heart. But with your will, or rather your soul, that is represented by the forehead. The soul is the mind, the intellect, and the emotions of a person. And the might is always represented by the hand, and especially the right hand of power, my right hand man. These are even used today. But to love with your soul and with your might is not so common in use today. But this is what the Hebrew culture understood as putting everything, spirit, soul, and body, into your passion for someone. And for God to say, love me with all your heart, your soul, and your might, he's speaking of a total love and a passion. Now when we keep on reading, he talks about teaching them to their children, and when you sit in your house, talk about them. When you walk by the way, talk about them. When you lie down and when you rise up, talk about these commandments of the Lord. Love them with your heart, soul, and might. And then it says something very interesting, using the idiom of the soul and might, the forehead and the hand. Thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes. And so this is a biblical metaphor for committing your will and your soul, all your thinking to the commandments of God, your activities, your strength, your abilities, to the commandments of the Lord. So the forehead and the right hand is not a strange biblical image in to the cultural Hebrew people. And so we've got to realize that this is what God was trying to say. Now, was Moses' law to be put as frontlets between their eyes and on their hand a computer chip? Of course not. But people unaware of these kind of scriptures will say, well, the mark of the beast on the forehead and right hand is a computer chip. Meanwhile, in Revelation chapter 14, just a verse or two away from the mention of the mark of the beast, we read something that nobody believes is a computer chip. And remember that chapter divisions were not inserted by the writer John when this book was first written. So we're just to keep on reading sometimes and forget there's a division of chapters. Because after we read about the 666, it says, "And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written in their foreheads." Now, was that a computer chip? No. The Father's name on the forehead is also an image, a biblical image of will and dedication to the Father. Now, I'm going to show you a pattern that I found in the Old Testament, comparing it with this story about the mark of the beast and the image of the beast. When God gave these words to Moses in Deuteronomy 6, and he mentioned the forehead and the right and the hand, Moses later came down from the mountain with the tables of stones engraved with the law of God, the Ten Commandments. Now, what did Moses find amongst the people when he came down from Mount Sinai with the marks or engravings of God's law? He saw them worshiping a golden calf, the image of the beast. The image of the beast was mentioned in Revelation. And then Moses said, "Let him who is on the Lord's side come to me." And the Bible tells us that the people from the tribe of Levi immediately abandoned the golden calf worship, came to Moses, standing on Mount Sinai, and then Moses told them, "Go and slay every man, his brother, his neighbor, and so forth." They couldn't have any prejudice or bias. They had to cut down the worshipers of the golden calf. 3,000 fell that day in death. Now, in Revelation 13, it mentions the image of the beast. It mentions the mark of the beast. And for God to tell Moses that the law should be as frontlets between their eyes and bound to their hand, we see Satan's answer for God's law with the mark of the beast on the forehead or the right hand. It's just Satan's law. It's his answer to God's law. It's a counterfeit. And in chapter 14, when we see 144,000 standing with the Lamb on Mount Zion, that was perfectly patterned by Moses and the Levites standing with him on Mount Sinai. And then in Revelation 14 and 8, "And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of their fornication." We see a perfect picture of the 3,000 falling in Moses' day who worshipped the image of the beast. God's people are standing on a rock called Sinai, and the enemy, the people worshiping the false golden calf idol, are fallen. And the Bible shows the same pattern in Revelation. 144,000 don't have the mark of the beast on their foreheads. They have the Father's name on their foreheads. They have God's ways. And Babylon is fallen, is fallen. And notice it calls Babylon that great city. And we're going to get into more about that and show you who that great city is. God bless you, and stay posted. And I will continue this thought of the mark of the beast in part 6.